My name is Vanessa Cole. I'm 32 years old. 3 nights ago, my younger brother stood in my father's kitchen, holding a beer in one hand and my childhood eviction notice in the other. Then he smiled at me and said, "Funny how the family screw-up ended up owning the house." Everybody laughed. My mother laughed the loudest. 20 minutes later, my father asked me a favor that would cost me almost everything I had built over the last 8 years. And the craziest part? He still thought I was the weak one. Before I tell you what happened that night in Cedar Falls, Tennessee, hit like if you've ever had family treat you like you were only valuable when they needed something from you. And tell me where you're listening from tonight. Now let me take you back to the summer I learned something ugly about love. Not romantic love, family love. The kind people swear is unconditional right before they attach conditions to every piece of it. I was 24 years old when I left Cedar Falls. Small town, one traffic light, one diner, one church everybody pretended to love while secretly using it as a gossip station every Sunday morning. My family lived in a white 2-story house on Baxter Road with peeling paint and a porch swing that squeaked every time somebody sat on it. My father, Leonard Cole, ran a local roofing company. My mother, Denise, worked part-time at a dental office and full-time managing everybody's reputation. And my younger brother, Tyler? Tyler was the golden boy. Quarterback smile, pickup truck, the kind of guy who could wreck somebody's life and still get invited to the barbecue afterward because he means well. Me? I was the difficult daughter. Too quiet, too serious, too emotional whenever I noticed obvious lies everybody else preferred to decorate with bows. The summer everything broke apart started with my grandmother's funeral. Grandma Eleanor was the only person in my family who ever looked at me like I was a burden somebody accidentally left on the porch. She used to say something that confused me when I was little. "Vanessa, people only punish honesty when the truth embarrasses them." I didn't understand it at 10. I understood it perfectly at 24. After the funeral, everybody gathered at our house eating casseroles and pretending grief automatically makes people kinder. It doesn't. Sometimes grief just removes the energy people normally use to hide who they are. That night, I overheard Tyler arguing with my father in the garage. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for aluminum trays because my mother volunteered me to clean everything while Tyler sat in the living room accepting sympathy like he personally invented sadness. Their voices were low at first. Then my father snapped. "You already burned 30 grand. 30 grand. I froze beside the garage door. Tyler answered fast. "I said I'll pay it back." "With what?" my father shot back. "Fantasy football winnings?" Then silence. Then worse. My mother's voice. "He can't lose the dealership opportunity over one mistake." Dealership? My stomach tightened. 3 weeks earlier, my parents told me they couldn't help me with my graduate program deposit because money was tight. I worked 2 jobs to save that deposit. I skipped meals some nights trying to afford it. And now I was standing in a dark hallway learning my parents somehow found $30,000 for Tyler. I stepped into the garage before I could stop myself. What dealership? Everybody turned. My father looked irritated. My mother looked cornered. Tyler looked annoyed I had interrupted his rescue operation. "Nothing that concerns you," my mother answered quickly. "Did you give Tyler my tuition money?" The silence told me everything before anybody spoke. You ever notice how guilty people suddenly become deeply interested in ceiling fans? My father rubbed his forehead. Vanessa. I started shaking. Not dramatic shaking. The kind that starts deep in your chest when your body realizes your heart has been living inside a lie longer than your mind was willing to admit. That account was from Grandpa, I whispered. He left that for school. Tyler scoffed. Oh my God, it's not like you were curing cancer. My mother jumped in immediately. Your brother needed help getting established. And I didn't? You're stronger than Tyler, she snapped. That sentence changed my life. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest. For the first time in years, my mother accidentally told the truth. Tyler was allowed to fail because everybody would rush to catch him. I was expected to survive because nobody planned to catch me at all. I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That hurt worse than the money. People always talk about betrayal like it's loud. Sometimes betrayal is just somebody refusing to look at you when your world falls apart. I left the garage, went upstairs, packed 2 duffel bags. My mother followed me into my bedroom halfway through. You're being dramatic again. Funny thing about toxic families, the person reacting to the pain becomes the problem, never the people causing it. I walked downstairs carrying my bags. Tyler was back on the couch watching baseball, like nothing happened, like my future had just been traded for one of his half-baked business fantasies and everybody should simply move on. I stopped at the front door. Nobody stopped me. That's the part people don't understand about abandonment. Sometimes they don't push you out. They just make staying hurt more than leaving. Outside, Tennessee heat wrapped around me like wet fabric. I loaded my bags into my old Honda Civic. My father finally came onto the porch. For 1 second, I thought maybe he would apologize. Instead, he said, "Don't make this permanent." Permanent, like I was threatening them by bleeding where they cut me. I drove 600 miles to Denver with $417 in my checking account and a cooler full of gas station sandwiches. The first month out there was ugly. Not inspirational ugly, real ugly.
Sleeping in a basement sublet that smelled like mildew. Working mornings at a coffee shop and nights entering insurance data for a logistics company downtown. I cried in grocery store parking lots because seeing families shop together felt like somebody pressing on a bruise. But distance does something important. It removes the constant noise long enough for you to hear your own thoughts again. For the first time in my life, nobody was telling me who I was. No mother correcting my personality, no brother mocking my ambitions, no father silently agreeing with whoever spoke the loudest. Just me. And honestly, at first I had no clue who that even was. One rainy Tuesday changed everything. The logistics company where I entered data had a systems issue. Orders disappeared, drivers got routed wrong, everybody panicked. The operations manager, a woman named Camille Reyes, stormed through the office asking who understood spreadsheets beyond basic formulas. Nobody answered. I quietly raised my hand. By midnight, I had rebuilt their tracking sheet from scratch. Camille watched me work for 2 hours. Finally, she asked, "Why are you doing data entry?" I shrugged. Bills. 3 days later, she offered me a junior operations role. That job changed my entire trajectory. Turns out I was good at systems. Really good. Not flashy good. Not TED Talk good. Quiet good. The kind of good that makes broken things work again. Warehouses, schedules, staffing, vendor chains. I could look at chaos and find patterns hiding underneath it. Camille used to joke, "You don't solve problems, you untangle them." For the first time in my life, somebody saw value in me that had nothing to do with sacrifice. Meanwhile, back in Cedar Falls, my family kept telling stories about me. I know because people occasionally messaged me online. "Your mom says you had a breakdown. Your brother says Denver changed you. Your dad says you just needed space." Everybody had a version of me except me. After year 2, I stopped checking. No contact isn't one decision. It's 1,000 little decisions every day. Not answering, not looking, not hoping. Especially not hoping. That part nearly kills you. Camille became more than a boss. She became the first adult in my life who taught me boundaries without shame attached to them. One night after work, she asked why I apologized every time I asked for help. I laughed awkwardly. "Habit, I guess." "No," she said gently. "Training." That word sat inside my chest for weeks. Training. Like a dog learning not to bark. Like a child learning their needs are inconvenient. At 27, I became operations director for North Point Logistics. At 29, I bought my first condo. Nothing fancy. Brick building, tiny balcony, view of a parking garage. But the first night I slept there, I sat on the kitchen floor eating Chinese takeout straight from the carton and cried harder than I had in years. Because every single thing inside that condo belonged to me. Nobody could take it away to rescue Tyler. Nobody could guilt me into surrendering it for family. Peace feels strange when chaos raises you. You keep waiting for somebody to punish you for having it. Then came last Tuesday, 8 years after I left Tennessee. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when my assistant buzzed me. "Vanessa?" "Yeah?" "There's a woman on line 2 who says she's your mother." My stomach dropped so fast it physically hurt. Not because I missed her, because trauma remembers voices before your brain can catch up. I stared at the blinking phone line. Then answered. Silence. Finally, my mother spoke. "Vanessa." Same voice, same careful sweetness she used whenever she wanted control to sound like concern. "What happened?" I asked immediately, because nobody disappears for 8 years and suddenly calls unless something exploded. Her voice cracked instantly. "Your father had a stroke." I closed my eyes. And there it was, the hook, the guilt, the invisible leash toxic families keep hidden until they need to yank it again. "He's alive?" "Yes, but," she hesitated, "we need help." "Of course you do. Not hello, not I miss you, not I'm sorry about the tuition. Help. Always help." I flew back to Tennessee 2 days later, not for my mother, not even for Tyler, for my father, because despite everything, part of me still remembered the man who taught me how to ride a bike and slipped $20 bills into my backpack when my mother wasn't looking. Trauma is complicated like that. People can wound you deeply and still leave pieces of love buried underneath the damage. Cedar Falls looked smaller when I drove back into town, or maybe I had finally grown beyond it. The old diner was still there, the church sign still advertised pancake breakfasts like carbohydrates alone could save souls, and Baxter Road still lined with houses holding generations of secrets behind lace curtains. I parked outside my childhood home at 6:40 p.m. Tyler's truck sat crooked in the driveway. New model. Expensive. Interesting. Inside, the house smelled exactly the same. Coffee, furniture polish, and tension. My mother hugged me before I could react. The performance almost impressed me. "Thank God you came." I stood stiff in her arms. Then Tyler appeared in the kitchen doorway. Older,
heavier, still carrying himself like consequences only happen to other people. "Well, damn," he said, smirking. "Look who finally remembered she had a family." There are moments when your body remembers old pain faster than your mind does. Suddenly, I was 24 again, standing in that garage, watching my future get handed away while everybody expected gratitude. I looked past him. "Where's Dad?" The smirk faded slightly. "He discharged from the hospital yesterday." I found my father asleep in the downstairs den. He looked smaller somehow. Stroke survivors often do, like the body suddenly realizes mortality is real and starts folding inward. When he woke and saw me, his eyes filled immediately. Van. That almost broke me. Almost. For 10 minutes, we talked about doctors and medications and physical therapy. Normal things, safe things. Then my mother entered carrying tea, and the real conversation began. "We're in trouble," she admitted softly. There it was. Not, "We missed you," not, "We were wrong." Trouble. Tyler sat across from me, avoiding eye contact now. Interesting again. "How bad?" Nobody answered immediately. Finally, my father whispered, "The roofing company's gone." I blinked. "What?" Tyler exhaled hard. "Dad let me manage expansion." Of course he did. Turns out, Tyler borrowed heavily trying to scale the business into Nashville. Bad investments, bad contracts, bad decisions stacked on worse ones. And my parents? They signed everything. Loans, guarantees, second mortgages. Because when families build one child into a god, eventually they start offering sacrifices. Now the company was bankrupt, the house had liens against it, medical bills were piling up, and Tyler? Tyler owed nearly $400,000 personally. I sat there, absorbing the numbers. Then my mother finally said the sentence she had probably rehearsed for days. "We're successful now, Vanessa." Successful now. Like competence was only valuable once it became financially useful to them. "You want money," I said flatly. My mother reached for my hand. "Family helps family." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because some hypocrisy is so outrageous your body doesn't know what else to do. Tyler bristled immediately. "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned toward him slowly. "It means the last time family money came up, everybody decided I mattered less." Silence. Heavy silence. My father looked ashamed. My mother looked irritated I had memory retention. And Tyler? Tyler looked angry. Angry people get when accountability interrupts their victim narrative. "That was years ago," he snapped. "That was my future." "You act like we ruined your life." "No," I answered calmly. "I built one anyway." That hit him harder than yelling would have. Because toxic people can survive conflict. What destroys them is realizing you survived without them. Dinner that night felt like sitting inside a courtroom where nobody admitted the trial had already started. My mother kept pretending we were reconnecting. Tyler kept making passive-aggressive jokes about corporate people, and my father mostly stayed quiet, watching all of us like somebody realizing too late he allowed a fire to spread through his own house. Then came the moment I mentioned selling the property. Simple financial reality. The bank's going to force liquidation eventually anyway. Tyler slammed his beer down. "You think you can walk back in here acting superior because you got lucky in Denver?" Lucky. People who never watched you struggle love calling survival luck. I stayed calm. It means math still exists even when it hurts your feelings. That's when Tyler grabbed the folder off the counter, the foreclosure documents. He waved them dramatically.
then laughed. Funny how the family screw-up ended up owning the house. Everybody laughed awkwardly, except my father, and suddenly something inside me finally snapped clean in half. Not emotionally. Emotionally had happened years earlier. This was clarity. Pure, sharp clarity. I looked around that kitchen and realized something devastating. They still didn't see me. Not really. Even now, even after everything. I was still the emergency backup plan, still the daughter expected to absorb damage quietly, still the person who existed to stabilize disasters created by everybody else. And deep down, they believed I would do it, because I always had before. That's the dangerous thing of being the reliable one in a dysfunctional family. People stop seeing your kindness as kindness. They start treating it like access. My father finally spoke around midnight. Everybody else had gone upstairs. It was just us sitting in the dark kitchen with the refrigerator humming softly behind us. "I failed you," he whispered. Those 3 words hit harder than the stroke announcement, because unlike everybody else in that house, my father finally sounded honest. "I should have protected you," he said quietly. "Instead, I kept the peace." I stared at my coffee. Keeping peace and keeping quiet aren't the same thing. He nodded slowly. Tears filled his eyes. "I know that now." And for the first time in 8 years, I cried too. Not because everything was fixed, because somebody finally admitted the wound existed. The next morning, my mother asked if I would meet with the family accountant. I almost said no immediately. Then curiosity got me. The accountant's office sat above an insurance agency downtown. Dusty blinds, cheap coffee, stacks of paper everywhere. Within 20 minutes, I realized the situation was worse than they admitted. Much worse. Tyler hadn't just failed, he'd hidden losses for a year, shifted debt between accounts, taken personal draws from business lines, and the final gut punch? My parents signed everything because my mother believed Tyler was destined for bigger things. I leaned back slowly. How much total? The accountant adjusted his glasses. Just under 900,000. I almost choked. My parents weren't broke, they were obliterated. On the drive back to the house, my mother finally broke character. "You have investments, right?" There it was again. Not concern, inventory. She was calculating me like an asset. "You want me to pay this?" "We're your family." I stared out the passenger window, cornfields sliding past, gray sky, tiny churches every few miles promising salvation for people who never apologize. "You stole my tuition fund." Her jaw tightened instantly. "That again." "You called me unstable." "You were emotional." "You told people I had a breakdown." "Well, look how dramatic you're being now." I laughed softly, and suddenly I understood something that changed everything. My mother wasn't misunderstanding the pain she caused. She had rewritten reality so completely, she genuinely believed herself innocent. That realization freed me more than therapy ever had. Because once you understand some people will never validate your suffering honestly, you stop waiting for closure from them. That night, I booked an earlier flight home. My father noticed immediately. "You're leaving tomorrow?" "Yes." My mother panicked. "But we haven't resolved anything." Resolved. Interesting word choice for people demanding rescue without accountability. Tyler cornered me near the porch later that night. "You're really gonna let Mom and Dad lose everything?" I looked at him carefully. "When's the last time you apologized to me?" He scoffed. "For what?" "Exactly. That's exactly why." He stared at me like I was speaking another language.
Because to Tyler, consequences were betrayals. Accountability felt like cruelty when you spent your whole life protected from it. "You got money now," he muttered. "What's the big deal?" I stepped closer. "The big deal is you only love people when they're useful to you." He rolled his eyes instantly. "Jesus, Vanessa, not everything's trauma." "No," I said quietly. "Some things are choices." And that shut him up. At 4 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I walked downstairs for water and found my father sitting alone in the dark. "You're not going to help us," he said softly, not accusing, just tired. I sat across from him, then told him the truth. "I would have helped you years ago." He looked up slowly. "But every single person in this house made me feel like loving me was conditional. Useful daughter, quiet daughter, sacrificial daughter. And now suddenly I'm valuable because I can save everybody financially." Tears rolled down his face silently. "That's fair." "No," I whispered. "It's sad." Because it was. Families like mine don't explode all at once. They erode slowly. Tiny betrayals, tiny silences, tiny moments where somebody should defend you and chooses comfort instead. Until one day, nobody remembers what healthy love even looks like anymore. Before sunrise, my father handed me something unexpected, an envelope. Inside was a check, $3,000. I stared at him confused. "What is this?" "Your tuition money," he whispered. "Not all of it, just what I could save without your mother knowing." I couldn't breathe for a second. "You kept this?" He nodded. "I always planned to give it back." Years. All those years. And suddenly I saw the tragedy clearly. My father wasn't evil. He was weak. And weak people can cause devastating damage while still loving you deeply. That's the complicated part nobody likes talking about. Not every wound comes from monsters. Some come from people too afraid to stand up while somebody else hurts you. At the airport the next morning, my mother hugged me again. This time I stepped back. She looked stunned. "You're really just leaving?" "Yes." "What about family?" I picked up my carry-on. Family shouldn't only remember your value during emergencies. Her face hardened instantly. There it is, the selfishness. Funny, healthy boundaries always look selfish to people who benefited from your lack of them. My father hugged me last and quietly whispered something into my ear right before I walked away. "She was always jealous of you." I stopped cold. "What?" But he shook his head sadly. "Too late. Too many years too late." I boarded my flight carrying that sentence all the way back to Denver. "She was always jealous of you." At first it sounded ridiculous. My mother? Jealous? Then pieces started connecting. Every minimized achievement, every insult disguised as concern. Every moment she encouraged Tyler's confidence while shrinking mine. Some mothers compete with daughters they should protect, especially daughters who survive things they themselves never had courage to escape. 3 weeks later, I received 47 text messages from Tyler. The bank officially took the house, and suddenly everybody wanted help again. But something inside me had changed permanently during that trip. For years, I thought healing meant making peace with what happened. Turns out, healing sometimes means finally admitting what happened was never okay to begin with. I sold my Denver condo 6 months later, not because of them, because I wanted a fresh start unconnected to survival mode. I bought a small house outside Boulder. Big windows, quiet mornings, no history attached to the walls. Camille visited during the move, carrying tacos and wine. At sunset, we sat on my porch watching the mountains turn gold. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. I thought about the kitchen in Tennessee, the foreclosure papers, my father crying in the dark, my mother still unable to apologize honestly. Then I thought about something else. Peace. Real peace. Not temporary calm before the next family disaster. Actual peace. Yeah, I answered finally. I think I am. Last month, my father called again, not asking for money, just talking. Physical therapy, weather, football, small ordinary things. We're careful with each other now, like people learning how to walk across cracked ice without falling through. My mother still refuses accountability. Tyler still blames everybody else. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. Sometimes they end with clarity. And honestly, clarity is underrated. Because once you finally see people clearly, you stop begging them to become who you needed. My name is Vanessa Cole. I'm 32 years old. And the most expensive thing my family ever took from me wasn't money. It was the belief that love had to be earned by suffering quietly. Turns out, real love doesn't ask you to disappear so somebody else can shine. If you made it this far, I want to ask you something. When people from your past suddenly call after years of silence, do they miss you? Or do they miss access to you? Think about that, and I'll see you in the next story.